here we are, Aden.
Yeah.
32 episodes later.
Look at this.
All decked out. The whole map discovered.
Got the Gucci boots on.
Got the Gucci boots. The Chanel sweater.
Damn.
Everything's here, dude. You already
Abercrombie
know.
and Fitch shield, my dude.
We even got the Supreme arrows. We're
Damn.
pimping.
Ooh.
And
But
here we
yeah.
are, ready to come back, end it all. No one knows what's about to hit them.
Damn.
And Breath of the Wild, number 33.
Hell yeah.
We're back on the Great Plateau, and we're going back to where our adventure began.
Starting the second
Just-
DLC.
Just wanted to hit y'all with a nostalgia trip to the first episode of the series. Back here.
Yeah,
Oh, gosh.
back in the good old days of 2014 when that series started.
The funniest part is the
bro.
game wasn't even out in 2014.
Right. I had to make it old enough to where it was pre-game coming out.
So cool thing about this is you just drop the Sheikah Slate in there, and we're good to go.
Hell yeah,
So,
bro.
can I talk about my experience with DLC Pack 2
Yeah. Hit it up.
and how I really just love it,
This is the good
but
deal.
also yeah. But also the night it was announced was wild. So if you didn't know, we got DLC Pack 1 in like June of 2017, I think it was, right?
Somewhere around
Like
there.
it was very, very early after the game came. Oh, my weapon stash is full. Very cool game. Very cool. And so, like, we got it afterwards. But everyone was like, this DLC pack kind of lame. And then they announced the DLC pack 2 would be story content, which everyone wanted, right? Everyone wanted more story content for this game. But we never had a release date, and we didn't know when it was coming out. As far as we knew, it could have came out in winter of 2020, or not 2020, but like winter of like 2018, right? We had no clue it was going to be that year. And then the Game Awards come out, and I didn't watch it because I don't watch the Game Awards. But for some reason, keep in mind, these fuckers have watched it 3 years in a row. I don't know what at least Zach has, because he watched in 2017, 2018, and 2019. So,
I don't think we watched
No.
the 2019 one.
did you not?
No.
You watched the 2018 ones. I remember because I didn't have internet at the time.
Right.
And everyone was in call watching it. And then I coincidentally didn't have internet during the 2019 ones either.
Well, the 2019 one was funny because Marjak and Donovan and the group
Oh,
was
yeah.
watching it. But
Everyone else watched it.
Me and Zach were clowning on people for watching it because it turned out like nothing
Okay.
of importance was
Okay.
announced. But no,
So,
we watched
yeah.
them the year before, 2018, 2017.
So Zach watched them in 2017, 2018 with you.
Yeah.
But I'm laying in bed, not doing anything because I don't watch the Game Awards. And Zach just texts me, says, DLC Pack 2 it was announced today, and it's coming out tonight. And I'm like, holy shit.
We got the one-hit obliterator.
We do. And geez, was it hype. I rushed into the living room like, Dad. He's like, what? You watching some cop procedural on like CBS or something?
Yeah.
And I'm like, Dad, the Breath of the Wild DLC came out. He was like, oh crap. And so he boots it up and he just starts downloading it from the Nintendo Wii U eShop. Cause yeah, I'm one of those. I had the game on the Wii U.
Stinky Wii U owner.
Make fun of me if you want.
Disgusting.
But yeah, and so that night, cause like Zach was also texting me stuff. He was like, we got there's a motorcycle, and I'm like, bro, I want to play it. And so then I did that night, and it was dope.
And now here we are again to re-experience it.
But yeah, I really just wanted to talk about like my experience with when this came out, because I think it's a really cool experience to talk about. Because that's what that's like been like a kind of recurring theme with this whole LP is like, what was I doing when insert thing happened in this game the first time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's cool to talk about that with the DLC too.
Because it's still so like recent memory for the most part.
Yeah. DLC's dope. So if you don't know, the DLC is called The Champion's Ballad, and for some bizarre numbfuck reason, it opens with you only getting a quarter of a heart and having a weapon that kills enemies in one hit.
A one-hit obliterator, if you will.
I don't know why, but it's the only weapon you're allowed to use. And, like, I think my only issue with this is the first DLC pack was so reliant on, yeah, we're gonna make a super hard trial for you to go through. And the second one's like, we're giving you story content. And it's like, but to get said story content, you gotta go through super hard trial that we're gonna give you.
Yeah.
And it's like, see, it's bullshit. It's like, why do we need more super hard trial where you die in no time, right? I don't.
I think it's weird to a certain extent that, like, what Nintendo constitutes as Breath of the Wild DLC gameplay is not like the exploration or puzzle solving or, you know, dungeons. Like, it's combat. It's always combat for some reason. And don't get me wrong, combat's great, but it's like 1/3 of the Breath of the Wild equation, and it's wild like how much of all the DLC relies on that one part. And it's like, yeah, combat's great, but, like, you know, there's some other things about Breath of the Wild that I like. The first DLC barely even has exploration because you're not even allowed on the overworld, right? Like, there's no puzzles, there's just combat. And granted, there is a divine beast in this one. But still, it opens up in very much a similar way where it's like, hey, you want to do more combat stuff? And it's like, no, there's more challenge to Breath of the Wild than just combat.
And it's like, another thing is, it's like they got applauded for having Eventide, and they got applauded for having like all this shit.
We liked it too. We talked about it last episode.
And we love Eventide. I like the Trial of the Sword. It's like they get applauded for that, so they think, oh, so we'll just keep doing that. And it's like, it gets even worse when you think about the fact that really this one-hit obliterator thing has absolutely nothing to do with the rest of the Champion's Ballad plot at all. And so it's kind of just like
more DLC added onto it.
Dumb DLC add-on, like, combat. And it's just, and I enjoy the one-hit obliterator. I don't want people to think I don't. I just think it's frustrating to get more combat, and it's a really annoying start to the DLC. And I don't want to get ahead of myself before we actually get to the next parts of the DLC, but to add insult to injury, the main chunk of this DLC is fighting more bosses. The main point of intrigue in this DLC is go back and boss rush previous bosses.
Yeah.
So it's like, even there, while you're getting new story stuff, it's more so just, now go fight these bad guys. It's like, and I didn't expect to start off the episode ragging on the DLC.
But like, dude. Another twist
it is like kind of annoying. Again, we do get a dungeon, right? So it's like, it's not just more combat. We get a new dungeon. We get some really cool new things, new story elements. It's just, I guess I do find it frustrating that the opening of it, you do have to slog through, oh, the game's hard again, right? When that was just kind of the concept of the last DLC. Is game hard.
Variety. So like, variety helps a lot too in that instance. Like having things to differentiate your DLCs, where it's offering like unique challenges. Like one way it could have done it too is like have Trial of the Sword be the uber hard combat one, but then have like DLC 2 focused exclusively on the Divine Beast and those shrine puzzles. So like, you know, now we get like a kind of Triforce of Power DLC where it's all about combat, and now like a Triforce of Wisdom DLC where it's all about like story and puzzles. And maybe you could have like a third DLC where it's all about like, you know, exploration, and have that be like a different focus. But they definitely want to, I guess, do a little bit of everything in each DLC. That's sometimes hard.
I really actually kind of like the idea of like a Triforce of like Courage, Wisdom, and Power DLC. That's actually really cool. And I think that's actually kind of got some interesting like potential if they were to go
It's
that
just a
route.
way of framing it. It's like, you know.
Yeah, yeah. So I have a question though. If you were to make like DLC based around those like three like things, what would what would you do for each of them? Like if you were to make like a power, courage, and wisdom DLC pack.
Well, I think like a lot of it is already here. Like
Yeah,
for
yeah.
the power one, it would be something like Trial of the Sword, where it's very much dependent on your combat. It's dependent a lot on like the items you find. It's dependent on. I would even go a step further and like add like some unique boss fights to that, or
Mm-hmm.
even to kind of link into the Triforce of Power theme. Like maybe have the DLC have older bosses from other games that you now have to figure out how to tackle with your Breath of the Wild mechanics and ideas.
Mm-hmm.
uh and so you're really just like testing your strength on that sort of stuff, and using your items and stuff like that for combat situations. Wisdom, I think, is fairly simple as well. It's just like shrine puzzles, divine beasts, maybe even like tie it all in together with like a huge overarching shrine quest with Cass that involves like maybe, oh, I don't know, like maybe a treasure map that Cass gives you that you have to decipher and figure out by going and talking to a couple of NPCs that then like tell you like how to get to each of these places, and you do like a bit of environmental storytelling to like figure out how the puzzle works, and it leads to like this big like complex either divine beast or dungeon with a lot of the hardest puzzles in the game, because clearly they have some of that in the later divine beasts. They can
Mm-hmm.
just build on top of that. And then courage I think is the most difficult like one. Like what do you do with that? I would make it like an exploration based thing where it's more of like your resources are low, but rather than it being a thing about like combat or puzzles inherently, the challenge of the DLC pack would be traversal. So like maybe a big open area with like a lot of nasty weather conditions and big terrain, and then having to like use the animals and wildlife around you to like get like maybe being able to craft armor to like survive tough parts. Learning cooking would be a huge part
Mm-hmm.
of it, like finding horses and like using the environment and stuff to like explore and do an exploration like DLC. But that'd probably be my three.
That's interesting because I was coming up with that whenever as you were doing that. But I like all of those. The courage one sounded the most interesting. That would be really cool to add.
This is all like top
yeah,
of
that's
my
cool.
head shit. Like I'm just, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
like the second you asked me, was just thinking of stuff like that. But right, like a little bit of variety is the main goal.
Mm. What I think I would do is I would actually, for something like power, I would actually just have it be a Cave of Ordeals type thing with you having all of your gear and everything you've learned along the way, because I feel like that is more indicative of like the power of Link in this game and what he can do. Wisdom, I would again just kind of make it like a puzzle solving, a bunch of new shrines and dungeons, maybe add in a traditional dungeon in the DLC. That could be cool. And then I think for courage, I would actually do something like Eventide for courage, and kind of throw you, maybe make it exploration and combat based to where you have like none of your items, but you also have to explore a new bigger place than just like Eventide Island, and so you have to like brave that area and brave enemies that you've never seen before.
Mm-hmm.
So I would kind of separate like Trial of the Sword and take away the you lack everything concept from Trial of the Sword and put it into the courage one, but like keep the floor based thing of Trial of the Sword basically.
And to add on to like the idea I had earlier in terms of story significance, like it's built into the names. You have a trial, like a wisdom, a power, and a courage one. Have each of the DLCs focus on the major character. So like
Yeah.
the wisdom one would give you more Zelda backstory. The courage one would give you Link, and power would let you know more about Calamity Ganon. And of course, you can integrate the champions like micro stories into that. But like now we're getting a little bit of story into all three of them through their own personal challenges, which I think would flow a lot better.
Yeah, absolutely. I really do like the idea, even though you came up with it like on the spot. I think it's a really cool way to frame from the DLC. And I would love if they were to do something like that. That would be really dope. No, that's cool. And again, like, nothing wrong with the DLC so far. I've really enjoyed it. Except for the fact that I died the same bullshit spot twice.
Plot hole.
Okay, I know I've shit on it and said some things, but they really know how to handle, like, making you scared to be in a shrine without any enemies. They have handled the type of landscape that they need to.
All right, you really need to. There you go. You're running out of arrows there.
No, Aiden, you don't gotta say shit to me, bro.
I was just, I was worried. Running
I'm
out
Jay
of
the
arrows.
Zoomster.
It was looking a little rough there,
We call this move king shit.
Like my homemade grilled cheese, it wasn't exactly looking up to par.
Oh
I
shit.
was worried.
Your homemade grilled cheese ain't good, homie?
I don't.
Oh no.
I put it on for too long, and then then it starts getting
Do you,
too crispy. And,
Do you like grilled cheese?
I do. I really like grilled cheese. It's just I'm
Okay.
incompetent at making it myself.
Fair enough. Fair enough. That's how I am with pancakes. Swear to God, every time they had me goofed up right there, and I was a little scared. Oh God.
Okay. All right. Well,
Pancakes.
Okay. Yeah.
You would think that. Oh fuck.
Look at you. Clutch shit right there, boy.
You would think that my biggest issue with pancakes would be burning them, right? Because that's generally what everyone's issue with cooking is. They burn stuff.
Yeah, I'm not paying attention.
I undercook the pancakes. I'm so scared of burning them that I pull them fuckers off early. And then the worst part is some pancakes will be the perfect amount, and then some pancakes I'll bite into and it's just ooey pancake.
Ugh.
And it's disgusting.
Yeah. You got me fucked up on that. You got me. Well, I was worried about, like, we were having. Apparently, my mom had bought some Auntie Anne pretzels or whatever, and she's like, "I've never had these before. Let's go ahead and put them in the oven." So I'm gonna put them in the oven, and then I realize, LOL, the oven light don't work, so you can't actually see
Oh no.
how much you're preheating it to. But I know that, like, if you press it, each press of it goes up by 5 degrees, and it starts at 300. So you got to go from 300 and then count how many times you're pushing the button to get to the required 425. And so I'm doing it, right? And I'm going. And then for whatever reason, my mind, like, wanders off. And then I realize, oh shit, I'm back again. And I'm like, yeah, that's probably good enough, right?
Oh no.
So I worried about those damn pretzels all day, and it turns out they were fine. Like, there was nothing.
Yeah.
But I think, like, what if I preheated it by an extra 5 degrees, and the whole pretzels are ruined because I burned them too much?
Yeah, that's the mood though, unfortunately.
But no, they were great.
They taste good.
They were solid. They had cinnamon on them.
Oh,
Slap.
fuck.
Well, apparently the packaging, you can put salt or cinnamon on them, so you can have it whichever way you want it. And I'm like, let's try cinnamon out.
Shit. Any way you want it? Yo, those guys just kamikaze.
They
said, I'm gonna turn my flying machine into a dying machine.
They did not have it the way they wanted.
Oh, fuck. I got suicide bombed. My
Yucca.
favorite thing about this game is how the enemies do not care about each other.
No.
And will put their own enemy, like, species' life at risk.
Well, they probably, like,
your shit up.
If a thing like a blood moon exists in this world, where no matter what stupid decision you make, in a couple of, like, hours you'll be revived anyway. You're
kind of making points.
You might as well.
You're kind of making points. Well, that's the thing. It's like, okay, we don't need to have this discussion, but I'm gonna have it anyway.
It's the same thing with
the
perks,
logistics. The logistics of the blood moon, right?
Yeah. We're gonna gamer nitpick the blood moon.
When they die, right?
Yeah.
Do they, like? Is it literally them coming back?
I'd assume
like
so.
That ones, or is it like just a certain, like, group of these type of creatures are reborn? Like, I don't know. Is it like, is that what we're doing here? Or is it a whole other thing about like, it's just more of that creature that's back in that area?
Well, I think it depends on your interpretation. Where like Goombas and Koopas are very much like Bowser specific. So like if
Yeah.
Bowser wasn't a thing, there would be no Goombas and Koopas. He brought them into the world, he takes them out of the world, etc. Like in the same sort of argument, you could argue that like Ganon just, can make 1,000 Lizalfos and other shit as well. Or you can believe the argument that like these were already creatures in Hyrule that like just decided to join Ganon. And in that case, then it kind of becomes a tricky issue of like, all right, well, can you reincarnate something like that? My interpretation was always just been that they were like, all these guys are made by Ganon in the first place.
Yeah.
That's why
so
they
then he could just
disappear,
make more.
later on. So he just makes more. They're not like a specific creature with a specific soul, if you will.
Yeah, that's fair. Because I was like, and if you go by like they're literally coming back to life, you have to assume that they have sentience and something beyond just I am monster. Like something beyond that, which I don't know if they do.
Right, like we don't know for sure.
Like I don't know if this Bokoblин's named Jerry and if he has a family or not, or if he's just mindless killing blue Bokoblin machine, right? It's like,
well, it's like you can follow these guys and they stay in the same path all day in the same camp. Like they're either very committed to their work or this is just their existence,
Yeah, so it's like, and how does that work? And like, is it? And the idea that it's Ganon makes sense to me.
Especially
because,
this
like,
context again, too.
Yeah, with
And
the
not
blood
just, "Hey,
moon,
dude."
it's like, oh man, fuck. But yeah, Ganon and they're creating, and the blood moon helps that because like, the blood moon is Ganon just going, oh well, it looks like my monster resources are low. Let me just make more.
Yeah, and he just makes more because he's a fucking demigod or whatever.
So that makes sense.
But no, like it gets a lot trickier if you're thinking from the perspective that this Lizalfos like joined Ganon's crew and left his wife and kids behind, and then if he dies, does the same Lizalfos with the same spirit come back? Like that's where it gets tricky. But I don't think that's
and
the
then
case.
you gotta think if so. It makes me feel a little bit better if this is just Ganon making them too, because I don't like the idea of Ganon recruiting poor Jerry over here who left his high-paying job and his wife and child to join Ganon, and then is constantly reincarnated and brought back to life. Like, do you think they get dental working with Ganon?
Yeah. It's a good question.
Or like, there's no like health and dental insurance.
It's a great question. They get benefits. They get vacation time.
Well, again, I wonder. Oh fuck! I didn't know he spit fire.
That's a little.
What the
fucked up.
shit? I've never seen that before.
That's a lot of fucked up, actually.
I have never seen that. Do you think Hyrule's somewhere that has like universal health care? Do you think like
so many of these plots have some form of incompetence either from the king or Zelda that leads Ganon or Zant or whoever into power. That I would like to believe that a system that incompetent probably would not have universal healthcare.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Do you think they have any type of like Medicaid for the poor, or is it just straight up if you're not royalty you don't have health?
They probably have Medicaid for like Zelda,
That's fair, yeah.
But like random Jimmy and Kakariko, like probably,
Yeah.
probably not.
Unfortunately.
There's already such a wealth gap when you like consider the Sheikah people, right? Like royalty just has access to these like fucking like Sheikah people with like thousand-year-old technology that's also like way better than anything the Hylians have access to, right? And like they had these big structures and cooperation from all the other races and stuff. Like being a Hylian is probably worse than actually being a Zora, because at least Zoras have skills, right? And like can properly like fend for themselves or whatever. And Hylians, their architecture isn't as cool as the other races, and they don't like have any like physical advantages.
For sure. Like all you have is like money, I would assume, right? Like you're just rich. Fuck, that shouldn't have happened. Ah! See, this is bullshit.
So the
This is
gap's
just
probably
unfair
huge.
gameplay. Did like, did like King the Hylian King, did he just come in and like annex the whole last place? And like say, hey, I'm the white colonizer. You Zora people gotta obey me, but
Right.
you guys can still act like you have your own rule,
And your
right?
own
Is that
king,
what it
even
is?
from your own people, right? Like, you know.
Yeah, but it's like at the end of the day, you're still living under my law in Hyrule.
It
Like
might it might be like that, or it might be like a state system where it's like you got to pay like the
oh, okay.
Hylians like tribute, and you got to pay money for like Hylian taxes or whatever bullshit.
That
But
makes
like
sense.
you get to have your own laws regarding how the fish people operate in your own rule. If we're assuming that Hyrule is a bit more advanced than the average monarchy, which was just very much like, okay, we're gonna take taxes from you and your citizens to work on our stupid lavish projects
Mhm.
and put you in our wars and shit as well, type of shit that you didn't ask for, and like put you into slavery as well. So it's like, how advanced are we talking about for Hyrule here? Where like, would it be the type of place where like, sure, the Zoras get their own laws, or is it a thing where like King Hylia has rules for everybody, and whether you're a fish people or a Goron, you gotta follow them?
I wonder if it is, because I kind of like the idea of it being like more of a state system, where like it's like, yeah, King Hyrule is the leader of it all, but like, what if he like allows each individual area to have their own ruler and like leader? So like, sure, the Zora's domain is part of the Kingdom of Hyrule, but what if Zora's domain also can make its own legislation, right? And it has its own like leader and its own like mini monarchy within the big monarchy.
All right.
And in that case, was it designed that way after a war, or was it literally just like the King of Hyrule coming in and annexing the everywhere, right? Like, it's something interesting to me, I guess.
And who
For
knows?
sure, maybe shouldn't
like
interest me.
maybe it is a
But,
thing
like-
where they all are like totally independent, and there is no like ruling, and like they all just act of their own free volition, and they're like doing it for the better good. But I don't know, like they sure do talk about the Hylians a lot, and it makes me wonder like if there is like a little bit of, I don't know, why would you have 4 champions like Zelda brings from all these different races, the best of their kind even, and they all die for Hyrule's sake, you know? Like,
I think even when looking at like
it doesn't sound
if we
like
open the map, like
that type.
you have the Nakluda area where you have people living there, and then you have hell even people outside of the Goron area living there, Hylians, because the Akalan people are Hylians, or then people who are like living in this area. And like, also, why would Hyrule Castle be in the center?
Why would all
right?
roads connect to Hyrule? You know?
So it's like, at that point, sure, you could say, to me, the only people that I feel like are truly disconnected would be the Gerudos, because they're like in uncharted desert territory.
Right.
But like everyone else, as far as I'm concerned, the King of Hyrule probably has control over them. And it's just kind of interesting to think about, because like I wonder what the logistics of the Kingdom of Hyrule are in this scenario. But I like the idea of them being state system mostly, but then again, it's like, did Dorothian conquer and take all of their land and then say, here, you can still have your own state system? Or was it a mutual agreement, right? You don't... Because either way, it's kind of a shitty thing to have this one white guy king and everyone else has to abide by him.
Yeah. And it's very clear, at least from like Zelda stuff, that it's like the king ain't elected. All right, it's very clearly a royal bloodline of like only a certain homie can rule, and like I feel like they wouldn't make a big deal out of the quote king of Hyrule if all he ruled was just the castle and the castle town, you know, and not everything else.
Yeah.
You know.
So like he's definitely, and again, there's another thing if it's like the whole like concept of, sure, there could be allegiances, but again, like you said, every single pathway leads to Hyrule Castle. It's in the dead center of the world. They bring the best of their kind from everywhere to work, because in case Hyrule gets fucked. So like it's very much like there's got to be some more connectivity than just their allies.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like you said, Hyrule is talked about so much by every race for this to just be like everyone gets their own share of the land equally, right? Like there's definitely some shady stuff going on.
The thing is with a lot of Zelda games, like it's always at a point where the government's kind of like fucked anyway. Like Breath of the Wild or Wind Waker, it's an apocalypse. All the 2D games, like Ganon's overrun, right? And it's like with Ganon's case, it's very much a dictatorship. Like that we know how his government works. Like very rarely do we get to see like Hyrule like actually acting like it's supposed to. I guess you kind of do a little bit in like the opening of like Minish Cap and stuff like that.
Oh,
but
what the fuck?
That very quickly goes to shit as well.
Mm.
So we never get to like really see how it operates.
I think the only Zelda game where places act independently of one another would be Twilight Princess.
You don't think there's no rule there?
I think there's rule, but in Twilight Princess, at least every area isn't as connected like it is in this game, where, you know, like every road leads to Hyrule Castle. And it's in the dead center of the world. Sure, Hyrule Castle in Twilight's in the dead center of the map, but like you have to go through deep wooded areas to get to Faron. You have to go like fucking like into like snowy areas to get to the snow people. You have to go a bit farther up to get to the Zora people, like upstream a good ways. And then like the Goron people are up a huge ass mountain and they don't come down from there, and relations with them are troublesome. So like I think that's the only time that like it's been where I could go, yeah, this is a disconnected kingdom.
Well, even in that sense,
game
it's
is
still the same world from Ocarina though.
Oh, it's the same world. Yeah, I think there's probably the case of like, well,
and Ocarina definitely had a monarchy. You know?
Oh, absolutely.
You know,
Ocarina especially has like the issue where it's definitely like there's someone. And again, I definitely think that that the King of Hyrule in Twilight is the King of Hyrule over the King of Hyrule. I just don't think that Hyrule in that game includes the Zora Kingdom, and because like if the town of Kakariko, right, which is a pretty decent sized town, needs tools and mining things from the Gorons, and the Gorons are being shitheads and being, no, you can't have it. The king could easily just tell them, give them the stuff, right? Or we'll make your life hell. But the king doesn't do that. Then again, it's kind of going back to what you said about how like the government's fucked in most Zelda games.
So we never get to like.
So like
really
it's maybe
know.
just like maybe the king isn't around. But I feel like that's just
dead.
the game where like yeah, or dead. I think that's just the game where like the world feels the most disconnected to me. But then again, you know, you have the kingdom which annexed and killed every single Gerudo in the desert and built a prison there to hold Ganondorf.
So it's like, there's definitely a
Twilight
long history of like wars too. You know?
Yeah.
So it's like it can't all be sunshine and rainbows a lot of the time.
Sorry, I just forgot that in Twilight Princess, the canon explanation as to why there's nothing in fucking in the desert is because after the events of Ocarina, the Hyrule army literally came into fucking the desert and killed every single Gerudo, and then built a giant prison to hold Ganondorf.
Of course.
Like I don't think Nintendo intentionally includes a lot of like political and racial subtext, but like that's definitely supposed to like
mean
incite
something.
that there's some sort of like racism in Hyrule, right? Like that's not meant to be taken lightly. They came in and killed a race because of one person.
Yeah.
Which I never realized until I said it out loud.
Well, it's like
that is quite literally what happened.
Zelda, weirdly, with all its races, are so very like insular, I guess. Like a big part of Ocarina is like you being a boy without a fairy, and all the Kokiri like pretty much outcast you because of that. And then it comes to find out, oh, you're a Hylian. And then you go around and meet all the other races, and like the Gerudo very much only like really talk to Gerudo. The Zora are very like prideful in the fact that like, you know, They really only like mingle with other Zoras. The Gorons are a very like tight knit group of people, and like even in this game, they kind of stick to their respective like groups or
Mhm.
whatever. And so there always is a little bit of like, if not subtext, then definitely like underlying meaning where like some of these races think way too highly of themselves and of others as
Yeah.
well. You know?
I think it makes sense a lot in this game for the races not to talk to each other because it's been 100 years since a grand calamity.
Right.
So everyone's probably kind of drifted apart. And you know, speaking of, maybe we're overthinking it, and maybe the Zora didn't have a king until the calamity, right? Maybe King Dorfian.
Well, now he would have had to
like,
he would have had to been alive because he's Mifa's dad.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
And in that case, but like still, like sure, he's Mifa's dad.
And Dorfan remembers,
but like,
like
yeah. Well, I didn't mean like he wasn't around. I just mean maybe he wasn't like
installed
ruler of the Zora. Maybe he was a king, but maybe it was like a constitutional way, where he was just the leader and he led those people. But maybe after like the king died, he actually became king of the people, right? Like he actually started to control them, and like work as a leader. And maybe it's the same way for all the others. Maybe the Elder and the Gorons is like became the Elder after the calamity, and after there needed to be that. We don't know, right? We've never seen pre-calamity Hyrule except in very specific cutscenes.
All right.
So it could be very interesting to like think about that. But yeah, like the only game really that I think, and ironically the game that I feel like has every race disconnected, is the same game where every race basically is pretty connected, and that's Twilight Princess again. Pretty much every race in that game has good relations with each other. They feel like they're the most independent that they have been in the series. Or, I mean, disregarding Skyward Sword, where there is no kingdom.
Right.
And
it's just homies.
It's just pre Hyrule, which is a really interesting thing because everything was in the sky apparently, which quite literally means that the second Hylians touched the ground, they just went full white colonizer mode and just took over the entire fucking world.
Yeah.
Which is pretty funny.
You hate to see it.
But yeah, it's like, it's just curious to me, like how like the government works in this game, of course. And again, Nintendo probably don't even know.
Yeah, they don't.
They probably haven't even. We shouldn't be thinking. This is a game theory like topic.
Yeah. It's ultimately the kind of thing we were ragging about in the timeline episode, where like all this like nitpicking, story pandering stuff doesn't really impact the game at all, and it becomes a lot of content that like ultimately is never gonna have an answer, and it's just kind of theory for the sake of theory. But it can be occasionally fun to talk about, and I do think about it sometimes. Again, I love watching a lot of Zelda theory videos. It's just
and
it's the type of thing that's not going to impact my feelings on the game.
Oh, for sure. And I don't know. I feel like Hylian government is kind of an interesting topic in general, not just in this game, but in every game, like every Zelda game. It's an interesting kind of idea because it is a monarchy. But in most monarchies, you don't see so many races, right? And so many like mini kingdoms. So is it all Hyrule, or is it Hyrule as the main one and then like a bunch of others? Like we don't know. And it's interesting to talk about for me, as someone who enjoys talking about and enjoys history of governments in general.
Right.
So this is very much up my alley. Whereas timeline stuff, I feel like is a lot less rooted in some sort of actual reality that I can talk about, and more just. This game connected to Ocarina of Time because the Link in Ocarina is a big guy in the forest in this game because he turned into a Stalfos.
Damn, bro.
Like, okay, cool, bro. That's dope.
You got dabbed on.
Speaking of, I didn't say this at the beginning, which I probably should have. This is going to be an episode where I'm just gonna do one hit obliterator until we're done.
Yeah, that's fair.
I should have said this because.
But
I went into this. I'm gonna edit, but like, I'm not making this 2 episodes or a 30-minute episode. This is probably still gonna come out to be around 40 to 50. But I just wanted to let you know that's where I was going with this.
That's
I was like, there's no reason to spend more than 1 episode on this area.
This DLC is already gonna be a long thing, and I'd rather we get the tedious part done in one particular episode. So.
Mm-hmm. So this is gonna lead to a dumber question. Um, what do you think like the government of the Mushroom Kingdom's like? Do you think it's better than Hyrule, or do you think like
So like,
it's probably worse?
I feel like for them specifically,
Mhm.
a lot of their shenanigans involve just taking Peach, right? Like
Yeah.
Bowser, you know, occasionally, you know, he'll mess with the Mushroom Kingdom and he'll transform it into a Bowser world or whatever, but it's like for the most part, we really just he's on a personal quest for Poon. And once he
Mhm.
acquires it, he's really kind of like done being like a harassment to the world. Like they'll bring some Goombas and Koopas or whatever, and they're there to stop Mario for sure. But like I guess if you're a regular Toad and Peach is kidnapped, you probably just go about your regular life because like the Goombas and
Mhm.
Koopas aren't gonna mess with you. Like you know the country still has to be ran without Peach. So I'm sure there's just like a bunch of Toads that probably just like pick up the slack from there. Why Mario goes out on a fetch quest or whatever. So like by comparison, the Mushroom Kingdom way of life probably isn't interrupted as much, and I think a lot of that just has to do with Bowser being a more incompetent villain as a whole.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Because you look at how Bowser does it, and like you said, Bowser really just kind of takes Peach most of the time. It's not really the same situation as where Ganon literally comes in and like fucking destroys the entire way of life of this of this civilization because you want something.
Mhm.
It's very much a different scenario with how Bowser does his shenanigans.
Mushroom Kingdom probably got universal healthcare. You know, they're probably
Honestly,
living the best life for themselves.
could you imagine if Mushroom Kingdom was like in the same universe as like Hyrule, and so Hyrule just gets destroyed by a demon king, and then they're just vibing in Mushroom Kingdom, waiting for their princess to come back. And it's like they're just having a grand old time. They don't give a fuck about anything, dude.
Absolutely.
They're just living in the world. All right, that dude's dead.
It just seems more
Oh,
cozy. for
thank
sure.
gosh. Absolutely.
Like I would rather live in the Mushroom Kingdom than Hyrule. 'Cause
I
Hyrule just sounds like a mistake.
Because I feel like Hyrule probably prettier. Hyrule probably got better beaches, better like state parks.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as like, you know,
Protection.
living conditions,
Yeah.
and, you know, whether or not Ganon's gonna attack, I'd probably pick Mushroom Kingdom.
Mushroom Kingdom
know,
probably
maybe-
like has toilets and plumbing in the sewer system.
Right?
Hyrule probably the type of place where you shit out in the middle of the street and somebody got to clean that
Well,
up.
you wonder why Hyrule's so middle aged every time. It's because they keep getting their shit rocked.
Yeah, they don't have any time to progress. And when they do, it's because of the Sheikahs and not really anything to do with the Hylians, you know.
They rebuild, right? And they're like, finally, our kingdom is back under control. And then they fucking, they just get dead again. It's just a never-ending cycle. Oh, anyway, this is the final shrine of the episode, y'all. Get hippity hype. So what have you thought about the one-hit obliterator, Aiden? Kind of breaking out of our useless discussion.
And talk about the actual game. That's wild.
Yeah.
One Hit Obliterator epic. It looked like a Torah, not a like a Hanukkah
A
candle.
menorah?
Yeah, menorah.
Like a menorah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't remember
They
the
kinda do.
word.
What do you think about the idea of going through and collecting shrines and shit?
The shrines have been
And,
cool so
doing-
far.
Okay, yeah, I like the one where it's like major test of strength and you kill it and then you're like, LOL, you thought that was all it was gonna be, and now there's like several other sections to it.
Yeah.
This one's cool. I like this one. I think my main issue with this is it's an area of the game that inherently is gonna take a little bit. Because it is easy to die.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, yeah, it's gonna get annoying after a while. When I played this my first time, I actually took a break after every section because each section took me like an hour to figure out how to get through.
Fair enough. We've been going through relatively quickly, and I think a lot of that It's thankfully been due to some interesting conversation and like
Yeah, yeah. I don't think this episode's been boring to make. I think it'll definitely have like things that need to be cut out, but I think that like overall we've had like fairly decent conversation. You know, whether the conversation is about anything
important.
that needed to be talked about is up to debate.
Those things are so scary in the dark.
Dude,
When they
I'm
light
fucking
up and shit, they
quaking
move
right
like
now.
spiders.
I'm fucking quaking right now, dude.
You just move like little bugs. Creepy.
And the only thing you can see is a little orange outline of
Ugh.
them. It's so
When
terrifying.
they come in like max speed or whatever, it's like no, none of that.
y'all be quaking, dude, just like I was. This is one of the coolest parts of the game, though. You just the light just comes back as soon as you touch those stairs, and there you are.
Thanks, bro.
Final shrine of the one-hit obliterator area.
We did it.
Thank Allah. Thank Allah. You know, it's Ramadan. I say thank Allah.
Hell yeah, bro.
I'm cutting that out of the episode.
What do you mean? It was epic. Spirit Orb
Might
too.
be
We can
offensive.
we can get a thing.
We can pray to Allah and he'll give us a spirit orb.
Hell yeah.
Oh, I haven't been fasting though, unfortunately. You are Hyrule's beacon of hope. So that's another question, Aiden. When Link dies, do you think he gets to come back, or is that just the end of the line for Hyrule?
Well, it's like
Like if I get touched by a spike and die, did Link just die, or like?
it's tough because Nintendo like always goes back and forth on it. Where like on the one hand, very clearly we have seen Links die before, and that's just a canon part of the world. Ocarina
Yeah.
Time Link dies in one timeline, and we just get a handful of games where that Link died. We also get a handful of games where like Link lives, but then he turns and dies and turns into a fucking Stalfos.
Stalfos,
Right.
yeah.
We have other games where he's just flat out dead, you know, and it's like, okay, so Link is mortal. But also, we have games like Skyward Sword where it's like, hey, the conflict's always going to be eternal, so whether or not like you know, if Link is taken out in one form or another Link is just gonna kind of like always be there for one reason or another. So I think from what I gather, it's a thing where like if you did die, I don't think the Hyrule gods are gonna go out of their way to be like, all right, let's reincarnate another Link. They'll probably just bring you back, I guess.
That's what I was wondering. Like, if you die during this crisis, are the Hyrule gods gonna be like, all right, I guess it's time to reincarnate another Link? Or are they just gonna be like, no, let's just bring them back?
They're not gonna wait
It's
another
fine.
100 years for another unrelated Link to show up. Like, it's the type of thing where I feel like until the Link's quest is served, if you die, they probably just reincarnate. But again, like that's tricky because like there's a whole timeline in Ocarina where like your quest fails, and I guess the gods are okay with you dying to Ganondorf specifically, not any other part in the game. Keep in mind.
Yeah.
If you die before Ganondorf, they'll revive you. But if you die at Ganondorf, well, that's a whole timeline. So it's like
only,
you know.
And this is why I think, only because of that if I were, for instance, in this game, to fall off this tower and die from hitting the ground, that's just it for this iteration of Hyrule. Right? Because they do have a timeline specifically based around Link dying. So that would mean that Link is mortal, and anytime he dies, he's dead for good.
Yeah.
Right? Which leads to an issue of like, wow, I really did die by getting hit by a spike.
And that's just what
and die in a shrine underground. No one saw me die. No one can get my body because I'm the only person who can access it. Thank you all. Again, comment down below what type of government you think Hyrule has. Do you think they have free healthcare? Do you think they just execute anyone who commits a crime, or do they have a Supreme Court? Go ahead and put it down below. Let me know if there's like a parliament too, or if it is just a monarchy. I'm curious because, you know, it doesn't matter, but you should comment anyway because we need the engagement.
Hell yeah.
Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.
Peace.